Excited to host Arabelle Sicardi and Darian Symoné Harvin, who are here to discuss Arabelle's new book, The House of Beauty. Arabelle Sicardi is a Taiwanese-American writer exploring beauty, care, and crisis. They've written for Allure, Teen Vogue, and The Cut, run the scent collective Perfumed Pages, and founded the Museum of Nails Foundation. They split their time between Los Angeles, California, and New York City. Darian Symoné Harvin is a multimedia storyteller and news curation editor covering beauty at the intersection of politics and pop culture. She founded the beauty media platform and community Studio Simone and lives in Los Angeles. With that, please help me give a very warm welcome to Arabelle and Darian.
Hello everyone, good evening. It's Friday at 7 p.m. and this is exactly where I want to be. Truly, thank you all for coming out. I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm very curious before we get started. I want to know a little bit about people in the room, like any writers, authors, or people in the beauty industry themselves. Okay, cool. I was probably all three. I said all three at once. That's amazing. Well, safe to say, I think all of us here either know Arabelle or are familiar with their work, or you have been super curious about the House of Beauty. Maybe you already know that Arabelle has been writing this book since, I want to say is it more than 10 years now?
No, thank God. Well, we're hitting straight up the 10-year mark.
Okay. I've been saying a decade. So I've been close.
Yeah.
And I think that no matter how much you know about beauty and no matter your perspective on it, I think that you will walk away from this book still never looking at beauty the same again. And the reason why I really feel that way is because, you might know about the corruption behind Estee Lauder or Sephora or Chanel and how she was, or Coco Chanel and how she was a Nazi empathizer, but I feel like it gets more granular than that. It has specifically to do more with your relationship to beauty, whether you get your nails done, and as you talk about, it's something that you still find care and refuge in. You're always still going to think about the undergirdings of that, of even just the location that you're in and the person who is doing your nails. And so it's something that I think Arabelle encapsulates really well, is that even within the terror of it, it doesn't have to be all bad for you personally. And I also had written down here that I think that this book is like a veil being lifted, but that veil was already super thin. And so I think that you have fully lifted it and said, hey, by the way, there's also something I thought was interesting as well around how you described yourself. You are an author, a beauty and culture writer, but you are in fact an anthropologist of aesthetics and a historian of beauty. And I think that the way that you've positioned this book has opened gates for a lot of people. There are a lot of gatekeepers in beauty, but I think that you have added new information. You are exposing new information because of the research that you've done. And I think one of my favorite parts is how you have also streamlined your own story within this book. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to get to my first question. And I think my first question really is for you. Yes, how do you feel, but more of what has been your experience so far, and is there anything that has surprised you as you've started to really talk to people about your book?
Double fisting here. Okay. I feel a bunch of different things at once. I keep on calling it like a millefeuille of feelings, because it's just sadness, grief, surprise, relief, joy, more fear, and stuff like that. And I think that's the way any creative process goes when you've really put your heart into it. On the way here, I was really emotional because it was one thing about me is that I don't have imposter syndrome. I won't even lie about that. I know in my spirit that I'm doing the type of thing that I always wanted to be doing. But when you've arrived at the end of a commitment, you have to let it go, and that's quite difficult. And so I'm letting it go as people are arriving, and that's strange. I love it, and I'm happy to invite people into it, but at the same time, it's like two ships that are not in sync. So yeah, it's a lot of different feelings.
Yeah, and I would even say it's like some people, this is their first, this book is their first voyage almost, and this is like the passing of yours in a way. And you know, we've been friends for a portion of the time you've been working on this book, and so I know a little bit about, you know, your mindset around like how you decided to structure it, which I thought was completely genius, but also being a writer myself, I think I would have pulled my hair out.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious. I mean, instead of, you know, asking like more of a specifically broad question around how you structured this book and how it evolved over time, I wanted to take the choose your own adventure element.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar, if you haven't dug into the book yet, it's truly around a choose your own adventure. You start on one page, and depending on which way or which like path of the journey you would like to go, you skip to another page, and after that you decide where else you want to go, and you flip to that page. And so how did that come about? Like, at what point in the writing process were you like, this is what I'm going to do? And how did you why did you format it this way? Yeah.
Let me revisit it.
Yeah, no, I'll hold it for you.
Okay, thank you. So the choose your own adventure, I call it a choose your own disaster because I'm not gonna
Disasters.
I'm not gonna say that it's gonna be a fun and sexy time for everybody, because it won't be. You are guaranteed to die once. I chose to open the book in this way because I wanted to blow up the industry in a way that I could control, but also center you as a complicit participant. And I knew from the very beginning of writing this book that I wanted to do something crazy that I would perhaps only get to do once in my career. Like, who gets to do this and still call it nonfiction? So I was like, let's see how far I go and if they'll let me get away with it. And then they did. And I was like, ha ha ha. Excellent. Yeah, literally that. My two reference points for putting this book, like this particular chapter together structurally, were, yes, like the choose your own adventures from when we were little kids, but also this book called How to Build an Atomic Bomb, which I don't really think anyone has read besides me and my best friend Max, and that's fine, but it's a labyrinth of a book with like 5 different entry points. It's chronological all around advent of nuclear war. So it's really strange and completely structurally off the wall. And then I really just love the choose your own adventure methodology from being a child. And I'm both extremely cruel and also love fun, so I kind of just wanted to mush them together in a way that compelled the reader to want to learn more as I info dump. Because yes, it's a lot of information, and I didn't want it to feel like I was forcing you into a documentary special of like how things work. I wanted it to feel strange and alienating, but also fun, because that's kind of what it is when you're like beauty pilled, right? Like you see like one weird lipstick thing on TikTok, and then like 4 hours later you have like 18 things in your cart, and you know so much beef about some influencer in Ohio, and you're like, suddenly I know so much about something that no one else understands in my zip code. And I was like, that's the experience of like beauty. So it has to be that wild and strange, and that's where we begin. So I wanted it to feel alienating. I wanted it to be something you fall into and you get kind of torn apart, and then the rest of the book is like building your way back to something familiar and a friend at the end. Like, it's really mean at the beginning, and then you fall in love. Yeah,
no apologies at the beginning.
No,
at all.
Bye. Hello and goodbye, and welcome into the fray.
Yes.
Yeah.
And something I had even told you, and what I felt was that you could have made this book much longer, in my opinion. You could have done the whole how things work. And so I was actually so impressed that you, for me, wrote something that honestly, it didn't feel intimidating, which I think means that it felt more accessible to whoever wants to read it. What was the first essay that you wrote first? I don't want to say chapter because I feel like it doesn't work that way, but what was kind of the first, your entryway into almost being like, okay, I'm ready to tackle this?
The first essay was the introduction, but that was also because you have to tell yourself what you want the book to be as kind of a compass. And even throughout like the whole multi-year process, the original introduction essay didn't really change. I needed to go back to it to remind myself to come back to this framework. And then, but the reason why this book took so long was because I didn't really have institutional support. I didn't have like a team behind me to do this research. And so 2 years of it before the book even sold, I was doing the research for the Chanel chapter. And I was like finding ways to finesse my way into all parts of the world to do this research without company permission or blessing. And that took time. But also, if I made a mistake, I was screwed. So I was like, I'm going to take as much time as I need. Yeah. So it took like basically 1 year to believe in myself enough to be like, with all due respect to every single person that's ever given me their opinion on how this book should be, you're all wrong. I'm going to ignore everything you've ever given me advice on, go into the woods, and do the version of this proposal in this book that only I can do. But it took me a year to stop listening to people and just be like, if you could do this book, you would have. Actually. Yeah. So then I did that, and then I spent 2 years following this one chapter, this one story, and I knew that if I got it right, I would be able to do the rest. And then that's what happened. The book sold on the Chanel chapter. Yeah.
Well, I would say that if you're writing a book right now, which I am, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, to me that feels so good. I think, well, specifically nonfiction and on reporting, that you gave yourself a year, even if it wasn't your choice, to report on just one specific chapter. And actually, the moment where I said to myself, how did Arabelle think to go about it this way? I think you had a line that was around, you were at the Ritz-Carlton in Paris or wherever, and I thought to myself, like, there's no other way that I would have wanted this described, was literally you being there and kind of making that connection. I just lost my second question. So I wanted to know, readiness. This is something that you and I have spoken about, and you had a foundation and you knew the things that you wanted to write about because of your past experience, but did you go in fully ready to do this?
Oh no, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think you know what you're doing until it's done.
And why so?
There's this quote by Ira Glass that I'm sure most of you know about the gap between where you are and like your taste and like what you really want to do, and so much of your time, I'm not really quoting him at all at this point, I've jumped ship, but it's, you spend so much time figuring out how to bridge the gap between who you are as an artist and the type of work you want to do. And it takes so much time and so much patience and resilience and a return to the work for you to be able to get from a draft zero to a final product, and to even know what that means, like when to get off the train. And for me, I could have written this way more memoir. I could have done that, and I knew from the very beginning that I didn't want it to be too much of myself. And so much of it was like just removing layers and just using a scalpel and taking out things that were too much me. Like for the Ritz part that you're mentioning, do you have it open?
I think I have like, I don't think it's that. The Ritz-Carlton part. Okay. Yeah. No.
Well, that's a really good point of reference. I'm sure most of the people here haven't read it yet, so I'll contextualize it. I'm in Paris right after Trump's elected, and I'm at the Ritz with a fashion editor, a supermodel, a casting director, and some other people, and everyone's having a great time, and it's like we don't know what there's a war going on, and I'm walking through and eavesdropping on all of these conversations about people making light of the strike at JFK Airport, and I'm getting text messages about people if they have lawyers and stuff like that, and it's just the balance and the balance of violence and celebration was very disassociating, and it's also something that I think all of us are familiar with now. But when it was happening at that point, it was like splitting my brain apart, and it felt very much like I had walked back in time to Chanel's era when she is dining at the Ritz and there's still caviar and everyone else is starving in Paris. I was like, I actually am so far into the story of finding this woman and her story that I actually can't tell her life and mine apart in this moment.
Wow.
Because it's like I'm in the architecture of this space and there's no windows except to the sky, and it's a place that's meant to comfort you. And how do you deal with the violence of the world in that space and hold yourself accountable? I don't know if you can with sincerity.
Yeah.
So it made me think of her differently. Like, and it made me think of myself differently, and that did change me as a writer.
Well, something you also do that's so powerful within this chapter is, I feel like you articulate this very well within the chapter, and you, I like also that you question yourself. You pose these questions to yourself, all the questions that you are posing to the reader, you've posed to yourself. You know what I mean? And when I was reading, I also found the ways in which you spoke about your own story to be highly effective when you did. And I'm trying to find this quote because I think we should read a few excerpts.
Sure, happy to.
But if you feel comfortable, this is around hair, and when you were, I'll kind of tee it up a little bit, but one of the first chapters is around hair, growing up, how much you loved your hair, and then also getting lice and what that meant. So I don't know if you want to start from the beginning. I kind of go ahead.
You want me to start from here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No,
Are you gonna hold it? Yeah. Thank you. All right. So. You know what, I'm going to read the first paragraph because I love this paragraph.
Sure.
I'm going to defend my paragraph.
Yeah.
When I was in 6th grade, I was meticulous about brushing my hair. I carried a travel-size bottle of Pantene detangling spray in my backpack constantly, and I always smelled like soap. Pride goes before the fall. Lice found me, and they greeted me with horny aplomb when I woke up one day. I screamed, I cried, I crushed them. Once I saw those bugs on my bangs, I immediately went without sleep, terrified they'd burrow into my bed, into my clothes, into the walls. My neighbors were a Hispanic family that I grew up alongside, while my father took care of our other elderly neighbors for grocery money. When the lice came, my neighbors took care of me. Tia stripped me down, hosed my naked body in the bath, and promptly cut my beautiful, bug-filled mane while I cried and watched the strands fan out along the tile like so many caterpillar legs. I felt betrayed by the thing I loved best, my own empire of hair. I wrote my first short story after that, and it immediately got me into trouble with the school principal. It was a short story about my hair being forcibly cut. The climax of the piece was me throwing my hairbrush into the vanity mirror that I spent most of my days staring into. The mirrored glass cracked into chunks, and Story Me wrenched out the shards to use as a weapon against those who would make decisions about my body without my regard. Adults asked if I was being abused at home. Was my assignment a cry for help? I was just processing my summer of lice. I missed wearing my hair like a cape, braided like a crown, long enough for its own centrifugal force. I wanted it weaponized, but not against me. You want me to read the rest?
Yeah, read the rest.
I understand why they were concerned, but my rage wasn't wrong. Hair's power is too much, too important to feeling good about yourself when you don't yet know who you are. I articulated that power in a way that frightened someone who saw it differently. I had been told all my life I had beautiful TV commercial hair, even if people often asked where did I really come from. No, really. I was told it was the best part of me because it could be sold or donated to others less fortunate if I treated it well enough. People debated all the time if I looked more like my white father or my Asian mother, but on one thing they usually agreed. My hair was the best of both. My vanity felt like my worth. To lose that was startling. I knew then, as I know now, that hair is a portal, a means of escape or assimilation. Hair is indicative of audacity, jubilation, rebellion, elegance. It can say, I need to speak to the manager. It can say, I am a swindler, the future of blood technology and Silicon Valley. It can say black power. It can say, I am a Hitler Youth. It can say, every ribbon and bead woven into my hair is a legacy that colonizers did not manage to kill. Hair is a measure of beauty, of respect, of wealth, of professionalism. It is a measure of identity that people register before they may even know your name. I knew that even as a little girl, that lice-filled hair was shorthand for filth, and that it must have reflected poorly on my home life, my parents, and my upbringing. People have read their own prejudices into the textures of hair for centuries, used it to shortcut their interrogations into one's humanity. Forced haircuts and race-based policymaking have long been part of how assimilation and humiliation have been forced onto human beings. Corporate and military codes of conduct list hairstyles as professional or not. Children are sent home with their braids cut, their afros cut, accused of myriad of things. Unprofessional, unkempt, unclean. The story of hair is a story of people. For people of color, it is braided into how we navigate a hostile world.
So there's a few things intertwined within this excerpt that you read. Mm-hmm. Number one, you spoke about hair from a global perspective, which I really always enjoy and appreciate. But there's also the community element around it, essentially, that had to do personally with you. And also what that tells me is that from a very young age, you had a sense of community that was, in whatever and however you defined that at that time, that was shaped quite young, I would say.
Yeah.
And how did writing this book challenge or expand like what you think community is?
Writing a book is really solitary. It can be really, really lonely. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without leaning on my community in so many different ways and finding new community, so I wasn't just myself writing it. It was really important to me that I didn't assume that my perspective was always right. I'm more guided by like doubt and curiosity than I am about like wanting to be right. I think trying to be right all the time kind of makes you a worse writer.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today. I think trying to be right all the time actually makes you dumb.
Yeah, like I think I had to unlearn like the point of a persuasive essay, because I was like, I don't want to brainwash people. I want to be in conversation with them.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning, so much of the pushback around structure, like the first suggestions of how this book should be structured, had so much to do with like the human body. Like I remember one editor that was interested in it wanted to do something like body parts or like the senses, and I'm like, you're assuming that we all move through our bodies in the same way. We don't. That's ableist. And then that we all have the same kinds of senses when we also don't, and that's also ableist. And I'm like, I'm not going to work through beauty in an ableist point of view. That would I would fail from the beginning. So for so much of the book, I made it a point to like have really different first readers for every chapter. And
Wait, say that again. You said first readers?
First readers. So, you know, like beta readers, just people that are reading like the drafts as they happen. And you know, for like the hair and nails chapter, my first readers were always Black and Asian women. I actually did not want my editor, who is a wonderful white woman. I love her. She's a great editor. I didn't want her opinion to be the first one to see things. And we also had a conversation very early on where it was like, I'm so grateful that you are my editor, but you are not my ideal reader, and I know that going in. So like I will be pushing back on clarifying questions that you might have as an older white woman, because if I have to explain what a beauty supply store is to you, that's assuming that the people that are reading that don't know what that is. And I personally am convinced that most of my readers would know what a beauty supply store is. And if I have to elaborate, I'm taking them out of the story. So my community was always the first to read it, or to help me brainstorm and like figure out the questions or the ugly parts, because I didn't want to get it wrong from the start. I knew I would get it wrong sometimes, but I wanted to have people around me that wouldn't be afraid of letting me know I was wrong, or that would like be able to lovingly guide me towards a different answer. Because I don't want to think I'm right all the time. I feel like that's too protective, and I don't need to be protected. I need to be in community with. Yeah.
You need to be in conversation.
Yeah.
Even as you're writing a book that will only have your name on the byline, that the acknowledgments really say so much, right?
Yeah. I know that I wouldn't be able to do this without leaning into community, whether that's like first readers or going to artist residencies and having the time and the privilege to be able to just write and argue with writers and like painters and people from all ages and all backgrounds from all around the world. That really did help me. And just like being a person going through the world and having to step out of the book and like do survival writing and freelancing, and not being able to do this all the time also helped me, because when I stepped away from being a beauty editor to a full-time gig, like I lost specific kinds of guided access to industry events and industry conversations. So I had to find other ways to get answers to things, and rely on a lot of favors and my community to ask questions on my behalf. It was a lot of sideways work.
Yeah.
So
could you give, I really like that you mentioned that, because I think it's very useful. And the geek in me actually wants to ask you all these questions that are about like how you researched this book, how you kept yourself organized. Like I really, really do. But the one question that I do have is there an example, if you can, it's okay, but any example or anything you can think about right now where it's like you did have to skirt around access. You knew that you couldn't just email a publicist, or you did have to call in a favor and find a different way.
I mean, all of the Chanel chapters and just me being a weasel. I'm gonna be honest. People have asked, like, did I formally ask for a statement from the House of Chanel for this? And I didn't. Like, I had people that were going to the salon, or that were on the beauty press tours, or like the fashion influencer trips, ask questions on my behalf.
I see.
But it never occurred to me to even attempt it, because I knew that they have refused interviews on this subject for decades, and also that the beauty industry is so litigious that I didn't want to damn myself from the very beginning.
Right.
Especially since I knew that beauty CEOs were trying to read the proposal when it was going out for sale, so to speak. So I was like, let me not give anyone a heads up, and let me mind my business and do it in a way that makes me feel secure. That being said, I also had an unusually large amount of access, even if it was informal and almost by accident. I don't even know if it made it into the final version. My version of the Chanel chapter is layered with the memoir that was taken out last minute. But at one point, I was at I've been to the Chanel archives. I know former ambassadors, and I've had access to things through them just by hanging out with them, even though the people that work at Chanel didn't know that I was writing this book.
Right.
I wasn't going to be like, oh, hello.
Yeah, it's even if you don't, right.
Not...
It's even if you don't think I have access, I have access.
Yeah, and that's fine. And the thing is, I did give other conglomerates and stuff plenty of chances to make meaningful statements about things. The fastest phone call I ever got back was any time I've ever mentioned the Lauder family in anything. They call me back within 5 minutes. I'll be answering a different email and I'll get a different thing back. They understand that people are always thinking about the politics of these brands. They just don't want to make a formal statement one way or another. Yeah. They want to hold themselves at a distance from these conversations, and I didn't want to waste my time getting more and more no comments when I could be doing other work.
Right. I would also call what you explained, and why am I blanking on her name right now? She used to work at BuzzFeed. She has the blonde hair. That was, I know, right? Was her name Anne? She,
Helen Peterson?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. It's something that she's very masterful at. It's like she'll write profiles, but she'll write around the person.
I love her write around.
Oh my God.
The best. Frank Sinatra has a cult, an incredible write around story.
Yeah. So, and I think that there are moments at which it's totally appropriate and totally should be done, and is the most interesting way to go about a story when you already know when a platform like Chanel is going to respond, right?
Yeah. I think that a write-around is just a really good way of telling any story. Like, so many of the best profiles written have been write-arounds, and I think having to navigate refusal and, like, find different ways to get your curiosity answered it opens the world in a different way. Yeah. Because someone might people self-mythologize in a certain way, and we lie about ourselves, or we posture ourselves in a certain way all the time, even to the people that we love. And certainly to the people that we don't trust and don't know, because we want to make the best first impressions. And I was like, there's enough mythologizing around Chanel that it wasn't going to be interesting for me to be like, great, thank you for the PR spiel. I asked people that had been part of the lives and the ecosystem of those who were affected by this work, and I tried to speak to as many people as possible that were not within the formal Chanel ecosystem for the work. And I was just way more inclined to give more time, patience, and care to people that are very vulnerable, and they didn't have a lot of resources behind them, and let them speak for themselves. The more layers of like PR that are in the room, the less serious the conversation's going to go. Especially in beauty, almost every single profile or reported piece any of us ever do, there's a PR in the room that's ready to jump in and navigate. And I just didn't want to deal with the PR pony.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, there's no PR ponies involved.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What a power grab. Truly.
Giddy up.
Yeah, truly. By the way, I would like to save some questions for anybody in the audience. And so if you have any, start to think of them. Also, who's got the time? 7:43. Okay, good timing. I think I'm just going to ask you one more question, honestly, and then I would really like to open it up. Please, if you have any questions, comments, things you would like to pose, please do. We can make this more of a discussion. Okay, let me see what my last question was.
I love that you used purple pen, like your brand color.
Yeah.
On the book.
Yes.
Collaboration right there.
Yeah, no, truly. Well, my thought was, this is my book, I'll have it forever, and I want to be able to basically, like, this is an archive, right? And so it's like, one day if, there's some beauty exhibition and they need to borrow my book for it to be in, I think about things like this.
Me too. We have big egos.
Yeah, I'm going to have an exhibition on my work one day. Come on. I love a little emotional question, but
let me prepare myself with more lipstick.
Okay, yeah. I am just curious to know how this book changed you. And the reason why I want to ask this question is because you were seasoned in what you did before you started, but also this was an education and a practice in and of itself, yes?
Yeah.
And so, how did it change you?
I'm the person I am because of this book. Like, my book is the longest relationship I've ever had. Like, with apologies to my actual literal wife, like, this is the longest relationship of my life, and I am so lucky. I fell in love, fell out of love, became a full adult alongside this book. The book that I wanted to write, or that I thought I was writing, is wildly different from the book that ended up happening, and it told itself to me, and it made me rise to the occasion of writing it. And I was not prepared to write this book at the beginning. I had to learn how to do it, and it was humbling. I crashed out like 18 trillion times. I was crying on the sidewalk a billion times, even before it sold, being like, no one believes in me. At one point, in the first year of not knowing what I was doing, I had two completely different versions of the book proposal. I had a version that I thought would sell because it sounded like a white man wrote it. I was like, oh, it's going to be like the historian, Wikipedia of history of beauty, so I'll get so much respect. And then there was the version that only I could write. And I was afraid of actually pursuing my version because all of the advice I was getting or whatever was to do it this way. And so just to be able to have enough courage and love for myself to put the safer one down and be like, no, if you only have one chance. Whenever I say one chance, I feel like I'm going to start singing Eminem.
But that's kind of but that's the feel of it.
Yeah, if you only get one chance to do something that you really, really want to do and you really love, you have to take it. Your life expands at the rate of your courage and your curiosity. And I was like, I would like to have a big life. I want to be surprised. I want my heart to break a million trillion times. I want a new skin to form out of every single cell of lived experience and loss and longing and life. And that's what I got through every revision. And what I loved about this thing is that I'm a very physically crafty writer. I print out every draft and I quilt it like a little quilt. It's very much murder wall, very much murder wall. And being able to see my ideas change and grow and be able to change my mind physically and be like, that doesn't belong there, that has to go here, or does this belong at all? And to be able to just have that movement as part of my daily life and my rhythm, it's there's nothing else like it. That is what it means to be alive to me, to be able to just crawl into something that only you can see and only you invented and be like, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna be able to bring other people in. I just have to give it a chance.
Yeah.
And then I did, and it worked. How could I ever love anything else the same way? It's the best.
Who, throughout this process or whenever, has inspired you, but inspiration outside of the beauty industry? And the reason why I ask this question is because I think that this book is a practice in intersectionality in the literal textbook sense. Well, I say that because you read more than beauty books and you have a politic and a practice. And so I guess for me, I'm just curious, who has inspired you, other writers, other people who you know and don't know? You know what I mean?
My references.
Yeah, your references.
So many people. I have a bookshop.org book of my bookshelf, and it's all the different books, almost all of the different books that I read in the process of researching, writing it, from just understanding structure and the conversations that I really wanted to have, to comp books, which is publishers' versions of if you like this, you'll like this, the algorithm of preference, and then other books on beauty and stuff like that. And there must be 90 or 100 books on that. It's quite deep. But for me, the books that made the most difference weren't beauty books. They were books on political theory, war strategy, community organizing. Mariam Kaba is so essential to me, and the idea that hope is a discipline. And Black women organizers are at the root of so much creative thought and intellect and care work and politics. And so I read a lot about that and the history of that stuff, and I read a lot about different entrepreneurs across gender, race, and class and on a world level. And I wanted it to be as global as I understood beauty to be, even though I think at the end of the day, this book is still deeply American, for better and for worse. Like, because I have a...
I mean, we're so annoying, so we, as a country, so we, like, have to kind of...
Yeah, like, I understood that I was writing this book, like, at a time where American fascism was, like, reinventing itself and redeclaring itself. And when I started writing it 10 years ago, this was, like, in the Obama years, right?
Yeah.
There was still hope and stuff like that. And when I started writing, like, finishing up the proposal, then Trump won. And then the first time, and I really understood that the America that this book would come into was going to be very, very specific. And that all of my instincts were telling me that I needed it to have teeth in a way that maybe made me look a little crazy at the time, but then everything that I suspected kind of came true anyway. So I was writing against time and the news and the decay of America.
Yeah.
And now it feels very timely.
Yeah.
Because of how long these things take. But keep in mind, I opened this 10 years ago. And so my references were community organizers and people that have lived through terrible things.
Yeah.
I was reading so much about World War II, just so much, and it was really depressing. I read a lot of, like, apocalypse prepper material, like the different smells of, like, nuclear warfare. There's so much, like, prepper books that teach you how to start fires or, like, how to get potable water, and that was, like, kind of the atmosphere that I began this book in. I was like, I need to go into a space where the worst has happened, we are surviving the worst case scenario, and then I have to crawl my way out of that. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And also poets. So apocalypse and poetry, those were my references.
Yes. Anyone have any questions? Hello.
All of that. I know you're pretty. Yeah. For me, I'm a hoarder. I'm really connected to the things I write, and I know the hardest part of writing is letting it go. So yeah, I wonder what you're gonna do with all of that stuff.
My work tends to kind of, I work in, like, a universe that only I can see, and this is called the House of Beauty because it's one building within my universe. And I'm already on the other things. Like, I'm already building those foundations. Hopefully it won't take 10 years. I really, really hope it doesn't. But all of my work kind of feeds into itself. So everything that I've learned throughout the process of writing this book goes into at least 3 other projects. So everything gets used, even the things that you can't see yet. I keep every single draft. And, I mean, I use Scrivener, which is a writing program, and you can make snapshots of changes as they occur. So I basically have every single change I've ever made on this manuscript, and I have different documents that are just like the things that I had to take out. And all of that can be its own story at some point. Nothing ever gets wasted. But I'm doing a bunch of different kinds of projects with all the different research. It all leads to different universes. It's a matter of choosing what I want to spend the most time in. And the House of Beauty led me to build the Museum of Nails Foundation, which is just dedicated to archiving nail art and beauty labor throughout history, specifically around nail techs, and the fact that beauty labor of that nature is not archived formally. It's not celebrated as nail art. So the work that went into that feeds into that project, and then for Perfumed Pages, I celebrate scent and fragrance as a collective. So all of the work that I ever do, I try to see how I can seed it to different structures that may be able to exist outside of me down the line, because I don't want it to ever just be reliant on me. I want it to be able to exist outside of me so other people can plug into. So yeah, it's all being used somehow, just none of those things are quite ready yet. Yeah.
Hi, you in the red jacket.
Yeah, quick question. You're talking about, taking a historical perspective among many other perspectives on beauty. And across the 10 years you're working on this, how do you feel that the beauty landscape has evolved as you've been an active participant
that's such a good question. I think the industry has wildly changed since I started writing this book, right? Like, when I left my full-time gig as a writer, editor, I left because, like, one, advertiser pressures, but there's also just, like, no one was really being critical of the beauty industry in formal avenues, and now everyone's got a TikTok influencer opinion about, you know, one brand or another not having enough shade range or this, that, and the other thing. And people can be more critical publicly, though I think structurally the industry hasn't changed for the better whatsoever, and it's just musical chairs. Like, I think just the other week, what was it, Marie Claire, that they had a piece that was about white supremacy and beauty, and then they had it taken down and then re-edited. Some of that stuff was removed, and then they put it up, which is pretty much exactly the type of thing that happened to me 10 years ago. So what's changed? Fundamentally, structurally, nothing. Even the rates haven't changed. If anything, they've gotten worse.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a bad vibe, guys. We're not doing that great. But I think there's way more collectives, and there's way more ad hoc communities, because the institutions are not working, right? So we're like, okay, that's just, all we have is each other. So let's have each other. And then the institutions and the brands or whatever, they can knock on our doors. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. And then, what's your name?
Coco.
Coco. Ooh, that's cute. And then Sierra in the back after.
So I've known you for quite a long time.
Yes.
We've been friends for quite a long time. And I've seen the process of you writing this book over the years.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if you had to take that experience and bottle it into a scent for you to keep, what would be the notes of that?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
It wouldn't smell good. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it would smell good. Like the finished product, like the Girl Boss version that people would want to buy, like, because everyone keeps asking me if I want to do a fragrance for this book, and I'm like, I resist the urge to commodify this experience. Let me just not do that. But the actual literal translation, body odor and tears and orris, which is like kind of the smell of old lipstick, like vintage lipstick. I love orris. It's also super expensive, but I love a good vintage lipstick. Because for so long I only ever used like my grandma's or like my relatives' beauty products, because I wasn't allowed to buy my own, right? So I have like ancient Estee Lauder gift with purchase beauty products.
It smells like powder.
Yeah, you can just smell it looking at it, right? You're like, ugh.
Right. Is there anything that smells like that right now? I don't know.
Estee Lauder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Lancome.
Yeah.
I mean, I love a good vintage fragrance, to be honest. Like the old ones, they're hits for a reason. But it would smell like body odor, it would smell like lipstick, it would smell like tears, it would smell like the beach, because I ran away to the ocean a lot. And then it would maybe smell like firewood from all of the different like residency things that I crawled my way into. And it would smell like ink. It would smell like an exploded Bic pen.
I was
Right.
thinking printing.
Printer. Oh yeah, and like fresh warm printer paper. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so I don't know. It smells like a life. That's a really good question. Yeah.
What about acetone?
Oh, of course.
I was gonna say,
The perfumer also corrects me. Yes, you know. It would also smell like acetone.
Sierra.
I'm really interested to know about how your process of discovery or research was for this book, especially because I like leaving institutions, whether that's editorial or education, you lose so much access to resources, whether that be like firsthand people or like books that are locked up behind libraries that you can't get into, things like that. So I'm really interested how you went about that once you decided to leave the editorial industry and kind of embark on your own. Like, how did you build that research or syllabus for yourself?
Good question. I think the important context to keep in mind is that even though I left a full-time gig, I had already been writing in the industry. I started writing for magazines when I was 14, and I got my editing job when I was like right out of college. But by then, I'd already built up many years of a Rolodex, and that was never reliant on one particular place. You should always have a copy of everyone that you ever are in communication with outside of your formal company's email address. Like, you should always, because they can just turn off your access within a minute of a bad mood, right? And you earned those connections, not the company, you specifically. So you should always put yourself first in that regard and just like make relationships with people, not the places that they're in. Especially for an editorial, people change jobs all the time. It's musical chairs. So you should always be nice to every single person, especially like I was disrespectful to PR girls before. I will apologize formally for that, because PR makes the world go round, but also people change jobs. They go in and out of editorial and PR marketing all the time. And so people that may have been interns when you were an intern, down the line, they might be an editor. People don't forget when they're disrespected. So for me, it was always important to see a long game. And when I left my job, I knew that I was going to leave one way or another. It was a matter of when, and I chose a moment in time that made the most sense for me politically. And I was also young. I could still be on my parents' health care, right? And I could travel the world on like very cheap flights and also using friend sugar daddy money to do so. The informal dedication of this book that I did put in was like dedicated to Tumblr and seeking arrangements, because I did advocate for men with resources to pay for things, even if they were not my dudes to begin with. I literally created business plans where I was like, you should invest $1,000 to buy me this ticket to this place, because I'm going to write a really good book one day, and you can say you're a patron of the arts. And they did that.
Yeah.
And it helped because I was hot with a bunch of hot women, and that's really helpful. But yeah, you should just ask people for things and be nice to every single person you can. And that helped me get things. I asked college students if they could find me things in databases I didn't have access to. I asked people on Tumblr if I could crash on their couches when I was like in Berlin or whatever. I asked for favors from so many strangers, and my ancestors work really hard to protect me. Like, they work so hard. I have been almost kidnapped multiple times. The things that didn't go into this book would be a great book themselves, but I always ended up landing on my feet, and people were always kind, and that made a big difference. But it's really a matter of not being afraid to ask for help from everybody, and making sure that they can ask you for help too down the line. Yeah.
I know that we need to save some time for book signings, yes. So unless there's like a burning question, I'm going to close it out. Any final words? Anything you have coming up for fragrance, perfume pages, Museum of Nails?
Let's see. San Francisco swap is on Sunday, and then I'm doing New York stuff. Yeah, I mean, we're going to be doing some workshops and stuff for Museum of Nails that it might be hybrid, and movie viewings dedicated to the nail industry and nail work for the holidays. Would love to see people show up for that. So check out museumofnails.com if you can. But yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
For buying House of Beauty and stepping into it.
Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.